grade 12 with a North Star, Unit 3, Reading and Writing, The Road to Success. Yes, let's look at the picture first before we continue. Here we see this brave lady climbing a mountain. Look at that, very determined as she is to get to the top. Right. Okay, we're gonna focus our topic here. In what ways does the photo suggest success to you? That's what we're gonna talk about. And the start of the unit is basically where we build background, which is very important because it helps us to focus on the topic. We're kind of leaning into our prior knowledge, things we've seen, watched, had in school, and what we know right now and what we're gonna learn. So it kind of builds a clear focus. Number 2, what is your definition of success? Is it happiness, love, money, being able to help other people, pursuing a dream? What is happiness or success to you? Right, I would like you to think about that so in our next Zoom meeting you can tell me what you think of it. This reasoning is important because it's a part of our critical analysis. We're kicking that one off. Okay, continuing with reading 1, Got It Dance. And as usual, we start with our vocabulary. The bold-faced words, back, come together, dim, discretion, miss a beat, place, reluctant, spare something, and take it out of me. Awesome. Now, Katie from reading 1, page 63, took a self-discovery quiz. Fill in the form with the correct words from the box to see how she answered the questions. So you have all the words here, and I'd like you to place it in the self-discovery quiz in the right place. Achieving success has a lot to do with how you look at yourself. Okay, you can pause your video to do this. Go ahead. Awesome. That brings us to the part of reviewing, which is the first step in our reading strategies. Remember, we then have skimming to get the main idea. Yeah, the structure of the text. Doing that by reading the introduction, every topic sentence, and a concluding paragraph, which then leads into intensive reading to read the body paragraphs and taking notes on main points and details. And then it leads us to question analysis and scanning to get to the right keyword and answer the question. Previewing we do to predict the text type and the purpose, so that creates this focus for us to know what to read for and how to annotate. And yes, we annotate everything, so it's keywording. Remember, circling, highlighting, underlining the keywords in the questions, answer choices, the text, you name it. Now in our previewing, as we're building a focus for our text, you're going to read a story about Katie, a young girl who leaves her home and everything that is familiar to her to pursue her dream. We are going to discuss, talk about, or think about these questions. Number 1, what do you think drives Katie to leave home? And what consequences might leaving home have for her or her family? You might say, well, I don't know. No, you don't. But think about it. Why would someone would want to leave home? So just, from your perspective, what do you think? Go ahead, write it down. Awesome. So as we're looking at this text, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to skim it. Go ahead. Okay, now we're going to read it, and while we do, I want you to annotate the body paragraphs on important main points and details. Okay, let's go.
Gotta Dance by Jackson Jody Davis. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it to anyone. Before I knew it, it was all through the family, and they'd all made it their business to challenge me. I wouldn't tell them my plan, other than to say I was leaving, but that was enough to set them off. Uncle Mike called from Oregon to say, "Katie, don't do it." And I wouldn't have hung up on him, except that he added, "Haven't you caused enough disappointment?" That did it. 9 people had already told me no, and Uncle Mike lit the fire under me when he made it 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, kaboom! On my way to the bus station, I stopped by the old house. I still had my key, and I knew no one was home. After ducking my head into each room, including my old one, just to be sure I was alone, I went into my brother's room and set my duffel bag and myself on his bed. The blinds were shut, so the room was dim, but I looked around at all the things I knew by heart and welcomed the softening effect of the low light. I sat there a very long time in the silence, until I began to think I might never rise from that bed or come out of that gray light, so I pushed myself to my feet. I eased off my sneakers and pushed the rug aside so I could have some polished floor. Then I pulled the door shut. Anyone passing in the hall outside might have heard a soft sound, a gentle sweeping sound, maybe a creak of the floor, but not much more as I danced a very soft shoe in my stocking feet. Arms outstretched but loose and swaying, head laid back and to one side, like falling asleep, eyes very nearly closed in that room like twilight, I danced to the beat of my heart. After a while, I straightened the rug, opened the blinds to the bright day, and walked out of what was now just another room without him in it. He was the only one I said goodbye to, and the only one I asked to come with me, if he could. At the bus station, I asked the guy for a ticket to the nearest city of some size. Most of them are far apart in the Midwest, and I like the idea of those long rides with time to think. I like buses, the long-haul kind anyway, because they're so public that they're private. I also like the pace, easing you out of one place before easing you into the next. No big jolts to your system. My bus had very few people in it, and the long ride was uneventful, except when the little boy threw his hat out the window. The mother got upset, but the kid was happy. He clearly hated that hat. I'd seen him come close to launching it twice before he finally let fly. The thing sailed in a beautiful arc, then settled on a fence post, a ringer, just the way you never can do it when you try. The woman asked the driver if he'd mind going back for the hat. He said he'd mind. So the woman stayed upset, and the kid stayed happy. I liked her well enough, but the boy was maybe the most annoying kid I've come across, so I didn't offer him the money to buy a hat he and his mother could agree on. Money would have been no problem. Money has never been my problem. There are some who say money is precisely my problem, in that I give it so little thought. I don't own much. I lose things all the time. I'm told I dress lousy. I'm told, too, that I have no appreciation of money because I've never had to do without it. That may be true, but even if it is, it's not all there is to say about a person. There is one thing I do well, and money didn't buy it, couldn't have bought it for me. I am one fine dancer. I can dance like nobody you've ever seen. Heck, I can dance like everybody you've ever seen. I didn't take lessons, not the usual kind, because I'm a natural. But I've worn out a few sets of tapes and a VCR. I'd watch Gene Kelly and practice until I had his steps. Watch Fred Astaire, practice, get his steps. I practice all the time. Bill Robinson, Eleanor Powell, Donald O'Connor, Ginger Rogers, you know, movie dancers. I'm a movie dancer. I don't dance in the movies, though. Never have. Who does anymore? I dance where and when I can. My many and vocal relatives don't think much, have never thought much of my dancing, largely, I believe, because they are not dancers themselves. To be honest, they don't think much of anything I do, Not since I left the path they'd set for me, and that's been most of my 23 years. These people, critical of achievement they don't understand, without praise for talents and dreams or the elegant risk, are terrified of being left behind, but haven't the grace to come along in spirit. Mutz and I talked a lot about that. He was a family exception, as I am, and he thought whatever I did was more than fine. He was my brother, and I backed everything he did too. He played blues harmonica. He told bad jokes. We did have plans. His name was Ronald, but everyone's called him Mutt since he was a baby. No one remembers why. He never got his chance to fly, and I figure if I don't do this now, I maybe never will. I need to do it for both of us. The bus depot was crowded and crummy, like most city depots seem to be. I stored my bag in a locker, bought a paper, and headed for where the bright lights would be. I carried my tap shoes and tape player. When I reached the area I wanted, it was still early, so I looked for a place to wait. I found a clean diner with a big front window where I could read the paper and watch for the lines to form. I told the waitress I wanted a large cup of coffee before ordering. After half an hour or so, she brought another refill and asked if I was ready. She was kind and patient, and I wondered what she was doing in the job. It seems like nothing takes it out of you like waitress work. She was young, maybe that was it. I asked her what was good, and she recommended the baked chicken special, and said it was what she had on her break. That's what I had, and she was right, but I only picked at it. I wanted something for energy, but I didn't want to court a side ache, so the only thing I really ate was the salad. She brought an extra dinner roll and stayed as pleasant the whole time I was there, which was the better part of 2 hours, so I put down a good tip when I left. While I was in the diner, a truly gaunt young man came in. He ordered only soup, but he ate it like he'd been hungry a long time. He asked politely for extra crackers, and the waitress gave them to him. When he left, he was full of baked chicken special with an extra dinner roll. He wouldn't take a loan. Pride, maybe. Or maybe he didn't believe I could spare it. And I didn't want to be sitting in a public place pushing the idea that I had plenty of money. Maybe I don't know the value of money, but I do know what discretion is worth. The guy was reluctant even to take the chicken dinner, but I convinced him that if he didn't eat it, nobody would. He reminded me of Mutz, except that Mutz had never been hungry like that. When the lines were forming, I started on over. While I waited, I watched the people. There were some kids on the street, dressed a lot like me in my worn jeans, faded turtleneck, and jersey warm-up jacket. They were working the crowd like their hopes amounted to spare change. The theater patrons waiting in line were dressed to the nines, as they say. There is something that makes the well-dressed not look at the shabby. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's embarrassment because, relatively, they're overdressed. I don't know. I do know it makes it easy to study them in detail. Probably makes them easy marks for pickpockets, too. The smell of them was rich. Warm wool, sweet spice and alcohol, peppermint and shoe polish. I thought I saw Mutz at the other edge of the crowd, just for a moment. But I remembered he couldn't be. I was wearing my sneakers, carrying my taps. They're slickery black shoes that answer me back. They're among the few things I've bought for myself, and I keep them shiny. I sat on the curb and changed my shoes. I tied the sneakers together and draped them over my shoulder. I turned on my tape player, and the first of my favorite show tunes began as I got to my feet. I waited a few beats, but no one paid attention until I started to dance. My first taps rang off the concrete clear and clean, measured, a telegraphed message. I paused. Everyone turned. I tapped an oh-so-easy, wait-a-minute time step, while I lifted the sneakers from around my neck. I gripped the laces in my right hand and gave the shoes a couple of overhead bola-style swings, tossing them to land beside the tape player, neat as you please. I didn't miss a beat. The audience liked it. I knew they would. Then I let the rhythm take me and I started to fly. Everything came together. I had no weight, no worries, just the sweet, solid beat. Feets, do your stuff. Didn't I dance? And wasn't I smooth? Quick taps and slow rolling, jazz it, swing it, on the beat, off the beat, out of one tune right into the next, and I never took one break. It was a chill of a night, but didn't I sweat? Didn't that jacket just have to come off? Didn't I feel the solid jar to the backbone from the heavy heel steps, and the pump of my heart on the beat? Time passed. I danced. A sandy-haired man came out of the theater. He looked confused. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, curtain in 5 minutes." I'm sure that's what he said. Didn't I dance, and didn't they all stay? The sandy-haired man, he was tall and slim, and he looked like a dancer. Didn't he stay, too? Every move I knew, I made. Every step I learned, I took, until the tape had run out, until they set my rhythm with the clap of their hands, until the sweet sound of the overture drifted out, until I knew for certain they had held the curtain for want of an audience. Then I did my knockdown, drag-out, could you just die, great big Broadway baby finish. Didn't they applaud? Oh, honey, didn't they yell? And didn't they throw money? I dug coins from my own pockets and dropped them too, leaving it all for the street kids. Wasn't the slender man with the sandy hair saying, "See me after the show"? I'm almost sure that's what he said as I gripped my tape recorder, grabbed my sneakers, my jacket, and ran away. Ran with a plan and a purpose. Farther with each step from my beginnings and into the world, truly heading home. The blood that drummed in my ears set the rhythm as I ran easy, taps ringing off the pavement, on the beat, on the beat, on the beat. Everything was pounding, but I had to make the next bus, that I knew, catch that bus and get on to the next town, and the next, and the next, and the next. Funeral tomorrow, but Mutz will not be there, no, and neither will I. I'm on tour.
Okay, our story. Now we're gonna go into the main points. Quick review. Remember what a main idea is? We have the general main idea, which is stated in the introduction in the thesis statement, which gives the general idea of the whole text. Yeah. So we can get that by combining the thesis statement in every topic sentence. We also have a general or a sub main idea, which we can find in the topic sentence of each body paragraph, and that is kind of the sub main idea of that one particular body paragraph. Okay, but it's in this part we're going to look at the main points. So you will have to go back to the text to scan it and analyze it. Look again at the preview on page 63. How did your ideas help you understand the story? Well, probably it was to give you some direction and focus on what to read for. Gotta Dance can be divided into 3 parts. Write a sentence that summarizes the main idea of each part of the story and use your own words. So we've got part 1. Which is saying goodbye, that is paragraphs 1 to 5. Then we've got part 2, which is on the road, when she's on the road, that is paragraphs 6 to 14. And then we've got part 3, which is meeting the challenge, which we can find in paragraphs 15 until 23. I want you to write a sentence about a summarizing sentence or a main idea. So it's only one sentence, right? So you're going to basically write the main idea of each part, and I would like you to use your own words, which is like paraphrasing from the text. Yeah, you can pause your video to do that. Go ahead. Awesome. That brings us to the details. You're going to circle the correct answer to each question. So for listening to details, it's important that you annotate every question and answer choice on the keywords, and then you can go back to the text, scan it to find that particular keyword and see what the answer is. You can pause your video to answer numbers 1 until 8. Go ahead. Awesome. That brings us to making inferences. Remember, inferences is when you make inferences, you're basically making an educated guess on something that is not directly stated. So you're basically combining information and their facts, correlating them, connecting it, and from there coming up with an underlying meaning and or a conclusion. It is analyzing your context. So we're looking at understanding someone's character. Now, a person's character can be understood through the remarks that are made, so the things that are said. We can understand the character through the actions that are taken by that person in a story. So by what the person says and by what the person does, we can know the character. Look at the example. Here we have the statement, Katie was a very private person. True or false? The answer is true. And the support we can find in paragraphs 1, 5, and 6. Remember that every answer can be found in the text, meaning that for every answer you must have evidence. Yeah? It is true because we can see that Katie was a very private person because she didn't enjoy sharing her thoughts or feelings. She shouldn't have mentioned her reasons for leaving to anyone. That's paragraph 1. Once she told her family everyone had an opinion that she was not interested in hearing, and in the end she wouldn't tell them or her plan other than to say she was leaving. That's in paragraph 5. Katie went into the family house alone to dance a goodbye to her brother, and she also shows her concern for privacy when she thought about buses as being so public that they're private. That's paragraph 6. So we have several remarks here that can show us that she was a very private person when we read between the lines. Okay, you are going to answer the questions. Yeah, you're going to based on your understanding of the story, think about whether the statement is true or whether the statement is false. I would like you to refer to the paragraphs in the story where you find support for the interpretation. So it is important to go back to the paragraphs to really reread it and scan it, basically, to really check whether your answer is correct. So you write a T for true and F for false on the line, and please explain in one or more sentences how the information leads you to this conclusion. So what was it that led you to the conclusion of your answer? Okay, I'd like you to answer number 1 until 6. You can pause your video. Go ahead. Great, that brings us to the last part of our video today of our lesson is expressing opinions, and this is the evaluating part. So just now we did a lot of the analyzing, to connect and correlate information. That brings us now to the part of evaluating, where having made all those connections and correlations, we're coming to a judgment or a conclusion. And for that, we're going to do reasoning. We're going to look at 4 points. Now, number 1, Katie's uncle Mike told her, Katie, don't do it. Haven't you caused enough disappointment? That was in paragraph 1. If one of your relatives said something like that to you, how would you feel? What would you do? Would you react the same way Katie did? Why or why not? Think about that. Number 2, do you think rebelling against the family is part of growing up? Would it then be a normal thing to do? Yeah? Or is it necessary or dangerous, or both? What do you think? Number 3, how did Katie's feelings about her brother Mutz affect her decisions? Do you think it is good for siblings to have such a close relationship? Why or why not? I wonder how your relationship is with your sibling, if you have one. Number 4, in the story, Katie laughed at the money people gave her for the street kids. who had been begging from the theater growers. Do you do the same thing when strangers ask you for money? Why would you do that and why not? Okay, those are things I'd like you to think about, so we can discuss that in our next Zoom meeting. Remember, this part of reasoning is important because it's evaluating where we're connecting all the dots together and coming up with a judgment. And so what do you think? But remember, whenever we express our opinion, it's so important to form RL, A for assertion, R for reasoning, E for example or evidence, L for linking back. And we do that with reading. We do that in peel, point, explanation, evidence, and linking. Awesome beans. Yeah, you did a great job today. That brings us back to reviewing basically what we have done today. So I'd like to review our information of today. The first thing we did was our vocabulary. Yeah, we looked at boldface words and how the words fit in context of a paragraph. We did previewing as the first strategy, predicting the type and the purpose, and therefore knowing our focus. Then we did skimming to get the main idea. We went into intensive reading while listening to the audio and annotating the important main points and details. Then we went into question analysis to find the main points in the text. We scanned for that. Then we did the details. We scanned the text to find details by focusing on the keywords. We talked about making inferences to understand someone's character by reading between the lines and making an educated guess on that. And last, we expressed our opinion to evaluate what we have been talking about and correlate it and come to a final judgment and conclusion. Awesome, you did very great today. Thank you very much, and we're gonna be back soon with our next video. God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.